one. I'm Danny Wilson from Boxing Science. I'm joined by sports psychologist Dr. Peter Olasurga and none other than former WBO Cruiserweight World Champion Johnny Nelson. How are you doing, Johnny?
Right.
Okay?
Yeah. So obviously from a psychological point of view, we know that there's a big mental aspect to boxing. So we wanted to talk to you today and find out a little bit more about building confidence, staying motivated, you know, when you go through some of those setbacks, some of those tough times. But for the people who don't really know that much about you, I was just wondering if you could start by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Well, basically, I started boxing when I started training when I was about 13 years old. I didn't actually start fighting until I was 17 because mentally I was just not mature. Mentally I was immature. I thought like a child. And I didn't care if I won or lost. It was just the camaraderie of the gym, being in the gym with the boys. So win or lose wasn't as important to me as it was to most of the other guys in the gym. And that mindset kind of was sort of a pattern in my head for quite a while. I never actually thought I was a natural fighter. I never actually thought I was a natural sportsman, athlete. So eventually, when I started to win as a professional, because I had 13 amateur fights, I only won 3, but I didn't care. I was with the boys, we had a laugh. Turned pro, thought, okay, might as well get paid for it. If I get to 5 fights and I haven't won one, I'll just get a proper job. I won my 3rd or 4th professional fight, and I thought, all right, we'll get to 10 fights, we'll see how it goes. I'll get to 15 fights. So this was in my head. And all the time I'm learning, but learning on the job. I didn't have the pedigree of a lot of the young guys coming through, so they had the confidence from the amateur pedigree of being national champions, ABA champions, boxing in the world and stuff like that. I didn't have that because I was a garbage amateur. So I had to learn on the job, in public. So eventually when it came to boxing for my first world title, I'd actually, now looking back at it, realised I'd actually achieved a hell of a lot, but at the time I actually thought I wasn't that good. I just thought everybody else was crap. That was my mentality. I didn't think I was good. So when it came to boxing for the first world title here in Sheffield at City Hall, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get exposed here. Because this guy's, he was like a former #1 in the world from Puerto Rico. You know, this guy's top drawer, he's the man. So now I'm thinking I'm going to get exposed. Not thinking you can beat this guy. I just thought I'm going to get exposed because these guys that box are garbage. It was for the world title. We drew. It wasn't a great fight, but it was still, looking back on it, a good achievement because I had the mentality, I had the body of a man, but the mentality of a boy. I wasn't mature enough. Now, looking back on it, I think if I'd have won, I'd have probably lost in my first or second defence because I wasn't mature enough to deal with the pressure, to deal with the responsibility of being champion. Now I know what responsibility a champion has. It took me a good 5 years to get over that because it was a big wake-up call. A big wake-up call to me, myself, physically, mentally, emotionally. A big wake-up call to the people, my view on people, because I saw the world through rose-tinted glass. Everybody was cool, everybody was friends with me before the fight, because I was boxing for the world title. When I lost, or when we drew, I still think I lost. I keep saying lost. When we drew, people disappeared in a heartbeat. And so I saw a side to people that was a bit shocking for me. But I think, again, that's through immaturity. I just didn't get it. Eventually, when I did box the world title, the best thing that happened to me was actually drawing for that world title and people's reaction. But that's now looking back on it, because what I had to do was I had to travel abroad. I had to be a sparring partner in dirty places, in dirty little bedsits in East Germany. Back in the day, it was horrible. I did this for 6 years. But it gave me the confidence to think, I'm sparring with the best in the world, the most elite athletes. These are world champions. They're paying me to spar with them, and I'm smashing them. And they're leaving. I'm walking back to my dirty little bedsit, and they're leaving in stretch limos. I'm thinking, I've just battered you. So in my head, it was my education, but it was the best thing that happened to me because I had to do it by myself, for myself. And so by the time I came back to the UK, then I knew no one's ever going to beat me. Because guys, they don't go through this sort of stuff. I'll never lose again. And it was the best thing I did. And that's what happened. I went on to box for the world title. Now I had the confidence and self-belief. I'd done my apprenticeship, but I'd done it as an adult. So to me, it's all about that. It's not about physical. To me, physical is a percentage of it, but to me, it's that. If that's right, you've got that belief and self-confidence there in yourself. I mean, true belief, then no matter how much the odds are against you, you can get through anything.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So you talk about almost an apprenticeship, as it were. So can you tell us a little bit about what you went on to from that? What were some of your successes in the sport?
Successes were, I set a record for world title defences as a cruiserweight. I made 13 successful defences, held the title for almost 7 years. And it makes me smile. And you can read a lot of books, you can speak to a lot of psychologists and people like that about drive and ambition. I'm my own example, so I know what works, I know what doesn't work. So I know that if I had 13 amateur fights when I started, this is how bad I was, and only won 3, to retire as world champion, undefeated world champion, it shows how determination, focus can turn an individual around and make you a completely different person. So yeah, I defended my title. I won the title against Carl Thompson in Manchester, who boxed Chris Eubank twice, and they were in unbelievable fights. They beat Chris. If Chris had have won, I'd have been boxing Chris. So I made 30 defences of my world title. I won the European title 10 years apart before that. And the British title. So I won it in my 20s, gave it up. The European title. Won the British title in my 20s, gave it up. Boxed for it again in my 30s, almost 10 years later, won it. Won the British, won the European again, then boxed the world title. So I knew everything had fallen into place. The problem was, nobody else did. That was the only problem. And that's why I think this is the most important tool for any opponent, any fighter, any athlete. And your biggest enemy is that. Because everybody else, it's all about the hustle. You've got to give me an impression that you're so confident, you're unbeatable. Look at Usain Bolt. You look at him and think, oh my God, no one's going to beat this guy. He's only human. But his hustle is the best hustle going, because you think, I will never beat him. And a little bit of success he gets, you think, oh, there he goes. He's a god, this guy's unbelievable. It's that, it's mental strength, mental self-belief. And once people grasp that, I say to a lot of young athletes, you're special. And you've got to embrace that. Some people feel a bit uncomfortable with that, actually saying that I'm special, embracing the special. Once you embrace you're special, and you are special because not everybody can do what you do. Not everybody can jump so high or box so well or swim so fast. Not everybody can do that, so you are special. You are special at that job, so you've got to think to yourself, now I'm special. Once you embrace that, your performances, your successes will fly high, but you've got to accept it. Don't feel ashamed of it. You're not being arrogant. You're not being a big head. You just think, you know what, I'm special. And that's what I eventually got in my head. I thought, I'm special. And I'm not being arrogant. You know, and then once I retired, I classed myself as a civilian. You know, people that watch this sport, I class them as civilians. I suppose it's like being in the army. You know, army, it's a lifestyle, and everybody outside that, they're civilians, they don't get it. And being an athlete is exactly the same. It's actually embracing who you are, what you're good at. And once you start believing in yourself, then the fruits will fall out.
So that confidence, that self-belief, that's kind of absolutely vital. It's key.
It's everything. It makes all the difference.
So you, obviously the path to success isn't necessarily a straightforward one. And you talked about a couple of things earlier. What are some of the biggest challenges that you faced that required some of that mental strength that you talked about? Well,
I think about some of the headlines from back in the day, and it was Coward Nelson or Boring Nelson and stuff like that. And you if people say it enough to you, you eventually start believing it. And so I thought to myself, especially when I boxed in Sheffield for the world title, and I should have won, you know. But I was a kid, I was immature. But in my head at that time, I thought, am I a coward?
How old were you at that point?
28, 22, 23.
Yeah, still quite young.
I thought, I'm a coward. And so you've got to go through that process. So fear, because when I'm in the dressing room, I'm panicking, I'm thinking, why didn't I pick something else? Why didn't I be a golfer? Or why didn't I be anything else? Why did I pick boxing? Why did I put myself through this? This is what I used to think every fight. And every fight I'd be sat there thinking, well, why are you sat here again? Now, so I'm having this argument with myself, not thinking, I used to see some guys like Harold Bomber Graham, he boxed hailed out of Sheffield. When he boxed in the dressing room, he was like a quiet mouse. He'd sit there, he'd not talk to anybody, his head be down. He'd just not speak to anybody. Before the fight, the dressing room would be like a morgue. So he's with fight or flight. Like when you see Linford Christie running with his eyes wide, like he's seen a ghost. That's how Harold fought. Brian Anderson, former British champion, he was a complete hooligan. I loved his attitude because he was like saying, let's have this. He's wanting to get out of there. Come on, he just wants to smash the money. I'm thinking, Jesus. And then Naz, my God, second to none. Because Naz grew up on that. Naz used to see Harold. Naz used to see Brian in the dressing room. So Naz, he got it. And what he got was he brought the atmosphere of the gym to the dressing room. So that gym life where we all feel comfortable and you express cameos of brilliance when you're sparring and you make moving around and your little moves you do in the gym, you think, bloody hell, that was good. You know, Naz brought that to the dressing room and thought, well, why not? And we thought, well, why not? So we had music, everybody's daffing away, it's noise and it's crazy in there. And from anybody coming in from the outside, thought it was pure chaos. But this was what we understood. This is what we get. You know, it's like when Naz flipped over the ropes in the ring. Everybody in the gym did it. But nobody was stupid enough to do it in public. And that was the only difference. Yeah. So Naz had the bottle to do it in public. Because many a times, you'd fall flat on your back. And we'd crease up laughing. But Naz thought, once he did it once, he had to always do it. But if you go in the gym, they've painted their ceiling now above the ring, you'd see all black marks on the ceiling. That was everybody's feet hitting the roof. Everybody did it. But what Naz did, he just brought that gym atmosphere to a fight. And so my mindset eventually, because you learn from everybody, was I'm just sparring with somebody I don't know. That's all. Pretend you're in the gym. And then I think the gym atmosphere. And when it came to fear, it was hard because at times I was scared. And so I had to become, in my head, I had to become friends with fear. So a lot of people, when they're scared of something or something intimidates them, they want to either avoid it and not look at it and not put their mind on it. Think about something else, do something else, just so they don't have to think about it. But what they should actually do is face it dead on and think, right, what's the worst thing that can happen? So go through that scenario, the worst thing that can happen. Say, right, we know what's going to happen. You know, that's the worst thing that can happen. Now, make fear your friend. Run with it. And you're scared at first. It's like a kamikaze pilot. You're going into all the scary situations so you get used to it. My preparation to get used to it was I'd drive from my house, I'd drive to the gym in the morning, and then there's some woods called Woollywood Bottom near the gym. Now, I'd do this at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd run through Woollywood Bottom. I'd absolutely shit myself. It's pitch black, it's the woods. But I'm getting used to fear. And so I'm understanding the difference between fear and nerves. And that's what the problem is. When people get nervous, they think, oh God, I'm scared. But it's actually nerves. Nerves are good. And my problem was, I always thought my nerves was fear. I thought I'm scared. And so once I got used to running in the woods, once I got used to doing all these things, then I looked for all scary situations. And then you'd go in laughing in the ring thinking, I'm actually not scared of anything. I can't wait for this. What we got? And I learned that lesson from Brendan. And when I won the British title in Finsbury Park on the undercard of Nigel Benn and Michael Watson, Brendan was proud because everybody said I'd never achieve anything. So for me, just winning the British title, it was a big deal for Brendan. So Brendan said, now you've done that, now I've got to do something. Because the bus brought us back to Sheffield. My car was in town. I said, I'll drop you off, Bren. There's a graveyard at the top of his road. And Brendan had to face his fear. It must have been about 2:30, 3 o'clock. We'd driven from London. He said, stop here. I'm thinking, we're at a graveyard. He said, right, I'll see you later. I said, Bren, where are you going? He said, you've done your bit, I've got to do my bit. And his was to walk through a graveyard in the middle of the night to his house. So he had to walk through the back ways, through the graveyard, through all the woods. And I'm like, what the, Bren, yo, Bren. And I could see him disappearing into the dark. I'm like, Brendan, look, wait, I'll come in. I'm thinking, fuck, I don't want to go. You know, and this was the beginning. And and that was years before I'd boxed the world title. Years before, all of a sudden, I knew I had this issue with fear, what I thought was fear. And when I saw Brendan do that, years later, I'd be thinking, I get it. So I'd put myself in every scary situation possible. So fear became my friend. So that hurdle was dealt with. It wasn't fear, it was nerves. That hurdle was that I had to understand what was holding me back mentally. I had to get it. And what happens is we either need a mentor, we need somebody that understands that can get into the psyche of an individual. But every individual is different. So what motivates you won't motivate you. So it's hard for any psychologist to be pinpoint spot on with any individual. And if you are, then that individual depends on you. And makes him even weaker because they depend on somebody else for his success. What you've got to do is you've got to make that individual understand himself and understand what his issues are and understand how to deal with his issues. And then once you've done that, then your job's done. You're just doing your job. And that, to me, that was the most important thing. Once I'd got over that, I knew I'd never lose a world title in the ring. I knew that would never happen because I understood what was holding me back. It was that. It wasn't physical. I wasn't a natural sportsman. I wasn't a natural fighter. I'm not an aggressive person. I'm not a hard man. I was just a man in a hard job. And that was all the difference was. And I just had to understand how to deal with what was holding back, but I had to deal with it. I couldn't hide away from it. And you see it in many different sports, not just contact sports, in many sports. And we all find those things. It might be people are scared of embarrassing themselves in public. You're scared of breaking your foot. You're scared of something. But you've got to get your head around that. And you've got to understand it. Don't look away from it. Don't think, oh, it'll be all right. You've got to analyze it yourself in your head that you get it. So when you're in that situation, you're ready for it. And it's important.
I think it is. I think you kind of hit the nail right on the head there in terms of, I guess, athletes trying to shy away from that fear or kind of deny that it's there almost, kind of block it out. Where you're saying that for you, that realization that actually I need to embrace this, I need to accept that this is there and almost do it anyway.
Yeah, you do that. Hey, one thing I'd learned, just little things. You train your body to the maximum. You've got to train your mind. Now, how you train your mind to concentrate, to stay focused, you've got to do little things. So when I'd go running, before, I'd have earphones in. Give you the music, give you the motivation. So it takes you off being tired. It takes you off like your knee, and it takes you off being bored. Take them out. Take them out. So for that hour, that 45 minutes, however long you're running, you're training your mind. So your mind is going through the boredom. Your mind is going through the fatigue. You're in tune with your body. When you're tired, when you think, God, I've got steak. God, I'm tired here. How many miles we've got to go? Think about all these things. Don't use your music to take your mind off these things because you aren't training your mind. All you're doing is helping your mind disengage from what's actually happening. So once you've done that, and you do it every day, every day, every day, your mind is as strong as your body, and no one will break you. So when you're in a fight, I can only talk from a fighter's point of view. When you're in a fight, sometimes you get a bit bored or you just get into a habit of doing something because your mind drifts off. It's used to listening to the music. It's used to not having to concentrate so much for so long. And that's why I say when you're prepping for a competition, take them out. No earphones. Yeah, you can have music in the ring, in the gym when you're training. But when it comes to sparring, when it comes to fight, take it out.
So it sounds like you're talking a lot about mindfulness almost.
Yeah.
Kind of just being self-aware and kind of understanding and accepting that you're going to have these thoughts and these distractions. And
understanding how to deal with them because everybody gets them. And we all think it's just happening to us. Everybody gets them. But if you don't prepare yourself to deal with them, it's going to hit you at some point. It might not be this fight, it might not be that fight, but it will happen at some point. Then all of a sudden you'll be panicking, thinking, God. So say, for instance, you're in a fight. What happens in a lot of fights, when it comes to about between round 6 and round 10, that's when you get your second ring. And so what happens is you get a little fatigue, your body flatlines a little bit, you think, God, I'm tired. But after that round when it happens, all of a sudden you come back again. That's your second wind. But a lot of guys, what happens is when they get to the second wind, and they flatline, they think, God, I'm tired, I'm done, I've got nothing left. But they actually have, they're just going through another walkway. And they've got to prep themselves, they've got to get their mind ready for that. And if you're watching this and you go for a run and you're using the earphones, just try tomorrow going for a run without the earphones. And I bet the run's harder. And it's not physically harder because it's the same run. It's mentally harder because all of a sudden you've got to think about all the things that are actually happening. And that's how you prep yourself for That's a little thing, how you prep your mind, how you make your mind stronger. And these little things make so much of a difference, and we choose to ignore them.
Yeah.